Testing, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. 1, 2, we good? Can't hear. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. I think that's coming through. Testing, 1, 2. 1, 2. Testing. Bear, can you hear? Is that coming out of that speaker? Can you hear me coming out of that speaker? They're not being helpful. It's on. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. I can hear myself. Are you good? You want me to keep talking? 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, knock at the door. 5, 6, pick up sticks. My 9, 10, my fat hen, I do believe. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Welcome to the wonderful city of, are we good?
Testing, 1, 2. 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. So let's do a mic test. Testing. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are testing audio. Oh, interesting. That's great, Angus.
Good work, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Most of the world is a clientele waiting to happen. Yeah. 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 That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's a good realization. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Don't know. No, I don't. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, very cool. Nice. Yeah, me too. I'm happy you're doing it too. You. What you doing? Nice. Yeah, yeah, because I see what you're Oh, where do you want me to hang out? Sit over there. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you, Hi, yeah. How you doing? Good. Yeah, you too. Really good to see you. Yesterday. Yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm totally all over. Yeah, just gonna make some run, but I think tomorrow will be fine. I know I will. No, no, no. I'm good. I'm good.
Sound good? Welcome, everybody. Is it working? There we go. I can hear it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, live stream. Wow. When I was getting ready to come here, I was thinking, gosh, it feels like it's Christmas morning. And I'm like, so excited. So it was really fun to just think about being here and seeing all of you. So I'm going to just start with some logistics just to get that done and handled. And it's just really to help things run a little bit more smoothly. And I made a note so I wouldn't forget. So the bathrooms, there's one bathroom here, and then there's another bathroom if you go out the doors there and out the other doors to the left and around, there's another restroom on that side. And when we're in here speaking, it's probably best to use the one on the other side because it's kind of noisy in there, just FYI. We do have an audience mic, and because we're live streaming this, you're going to have to use the mic so that the people who are on the live stream can hear you speaking, or else they don't hear anything. So if you could wait till, if you want to share something, just wait till the microphone gets to you, and then hold it right under your chin, and then there hopefully won't be any feedback, and then everybody will be able to hear here and also on the live stream. We have 3 wonderful assistants. I'm looking for them. They might be outside, so maybe there's one. Oh yeah, here we go. Jesse and Michelle. So if you need anything, if you have any concerns, questions, you can always ask Angus or I, but Michelle, Jesse, and Cassie, who I think is outside, who you met when you came in, please feel free to reach out to any of them, and they're happy to support you. And then because this is a hybrid program, which is kind of a little bit different than how we did it last time, but it worked really well for a few people that did some in person and some live stream, we've made that available to people. But it has added a logistical management that we didn't have before. So if you are typically an in-person participant and you're going to be missing a weekend, then please let Elaine know so she will make sure that you get the virtual information for that weekend. And if you're a virtual person and you happen to be coming to join us for a weekend, that'd be wonderful, and I'll speak to you. Also let Elaine know that you'll be joining so that we know that we have enough chairs in the room and name tags and so forth. So that would be really helpful on our end. And what else do I have here? During the live stream, there's going to be times where we're taking questions and reflections. For the people who are on the live stream, you're not able to share, we can't hear you or see you, but there's a chat and you can enter anything you want in the chat if you have a question that you'd like to have asked. And then Angus or whoever's on the Zoom chat, you can, he or they will read it out. And I think that's it. All right. Maybe I can't move. So before Aaron comes up here, I just wanted to give all of you a little bit of context for this program and let you know the inspiration behind it, kind of speak to how you can, you know, allow yourself to receive the most from it, and also speak to, you know, some things that tend to come up as part of these trainings. And then we'll have Erin. So the inspiration, sorry about that. Should we go? Okay. That's right. I was working with someone who does event production, and they said the weather and sound were the two things that you could never predict. So we're learning that. So the inspiration for this program came a couple of years ago, and it was one of those thoughts that just came to mind, and I immediately dismissed it because I'm like, I can't do that. That's not for me to do. And we had been doing some sort of one-off weekends with different Three Principles teachers coming into the area and doing them, and they were really lovely. But what I was really wanting to experience was a deeper steeping in the conversation, to have the time to really drop in and as a group stay on the journey together. And so that's really where this inspiration came from, is to create a container where we can kind of all be learning and growing and seeing more things together, and have the time to do that. So it's not just a popping in and out. And then when I approached the facilitators to see if they were open to doing it, and I explained that I really wanted to have it focused on just the understanding that Sydney Banks shared. I didn't want to have a focus on the application for anything, because it seemed to me that when we have a deeper understanding, that everything else in life seems to take care of itself. And so they were really excited about the idea. And so it just was one of those very graceful unfoldings. And it was meant to be a one-year or one-time offering. And, you know, Angus and I did it, and it was just so phenomenal last year that we decided we'd do it one more time. And we learned so much about sound and other event production along the way. And it just seemed right to do it one more time. So we're so grateful that you said yes and chose in to be on this journey together. It's really delicious. It's a really beautiful experience to just come together and really give yourselves the opportunity to slow down and drop in and connect more deeply with yourself, and to see what emerges from that, to just see what shows up and be curious. And so that's part of, in terms of, you know, participation in the program. You know, many of you have done this before, but some of you are very new to the Three Principles understanding. And so I just want to kind of help everybody get on the same page. And so, as with other trainings, they're oftentimes content-based. So you come with your notebook ready to take notes and sort of listening in that way to sort of what intellectually you're going to get out of the experience. And this isn't that kind of training. This is not a content-based training. It's an experiential training. And even though we're going to be sharing with words, we're going to be sharing content, what's important isn't that. What's important is what wakes up inside of you, what you hear, what resonates, what fresh thinking occurs to you. And so, you know, what I encourage you to do is to really let your mind rest, to not worry about hearing everything, catching everything. Everything is recorded, so if you really do want to go back and watch it, you can, which is kind of nice. And it just gives you the opportunity to be in the room, be present, and not have a lot on your mind. And to me, I think there's so much training and conditioning to listen from a more intellectual or analytical place, that when we're listening, we're considering, we're thinking, how does that fit for me? Does that make sense? And to realize that that actually isn't required. And we're not going to be sort of brainwashing you or trying to slip something in. So it's like, you don't have to be vigilant, but just to kind of let it wash over you. And you'll just notice and see what resonates and what really makes sense and has impact for you. The other piece that I would say from the experience last time around is that the staying in the conversation seems to be really powerful, people. So we have these in-person weekends or live stream weekends where you get to participate in the large group. But the webinars in between the weekends and the office hours really keep the conversation going and really help with the integration into your life, so that it's not sort of just a high, you get a nice high coming to a weekend and then you get back to life. It's like, this is about really taking this in a way that is sustainable and has impact and lands, so that there's a shift inside that happens. And we can't make that shift happen. We can't work at it, but we can kind of make ourselves open to it, and you can give yourself the opportunity to steep in it. So that's why those extra layers of the program are included in terms of the virtual webinars and office hours. And none of them are mandatory, so it's not like you have to show up, but I'm just encouraging you to give yourself the opportunity to participate fully. And then another thing that I think is important for me to share is just a little bit about what this understanding, the impact that it's had on me, and why I'm wanting to bring all of these teachers in and spend time with you, because these are all my mentors. These are all people that I have learned from, that I have really been impacted from in my life. And there's something really profound in their level of understanding. And it's not that you have to have met Sydney Banks or learned directly from him. I think that we all have this inside of us. But to me, there was a way that they learned from him that allows them to have it an embodied kind of knowing that I think is so powerful. And just being in the presence of that, just being exposed to that, I think has a really profound impact. And so you're going to get the opportunity to hear the same understanding shared from many different perspectives of 10 different teachers and myself, but it's the same understanding. And what Sydney Banks shared was very simple. And unlike a lot of other teachings, there's not a lot for the intellect to grab onto. And Erin and I were actually talking about this before this weekend, and I was mentioning how there's different people have had different amount of time in exposure to the principles. And I said, so, I guess we should, start at the beginning. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea, but we really only have the beginning anyway. And so it's an understanding where there really isn't much more than the beginning, but we keep revisiting the beginning. And each time we let it go in a little deeper, we let it land a little bit more deeply and see where that goes. And for me, that was, I think, part of what helped it get around my intellect, because my intellect loved to kind of dig into things and go deeper with things. And for this, it was like, well, there wasn't really much for my intellect to do. And also, what was really profound for me about this understanding, it was the first time that I'd come across an understanding that wasn't technique-based. It was the first time that I came across an understanding that was really saying that there isn't anything to do. It really is all inside. And I had been, doing various things in my life to grow and to learn. And even if they said that it was inside, there was always something to do to get to what was inside. And this was the first time that it was really became clear to me that there isn't anything to do. It really is right there. And I think the misunderstanding that I had made was that I thought that I needed to improve my humanness. I thought I needed to improve my personality in order to get a deeper connection with my true nature, a deeper connection with myself. And so I spent a lot of time trying to improve my personality, trying to become better in that way. And I didn't realize how that direction was actually taking me further and further into suffering. It was actually giving me more of what I didn't want. And so it was through doing an intensive, and some of you have heard this story, but it was through doing an intensive with Linda Pransky where, I went in and I had a couple years experience with understanding at that point, but I was still confused. And I still thought that this understanding of the principles was going to be a way that I could have more radical self-improvement happen, because it was happening. I didn't know how it was happening, but I was feeling lighter. I was feeling more peaceful. Angus and I were getting along better. Like life was changing. So I was like, oh, obviously this is a great self-improvement tool. But, and then I'd get caught up in my insecurity. I'd get caught up in my anxiety. And so I'm like, okay, so now I just need to see this more deeply. And then I won't have to suffer in this way. I'm not going to have to suffer with my insecurity. It's going to go away. I can get rid of it, because if it's coming from thought, then surely I can have it so that I don't have these thoughts anymore. And so, you know, when I kind of shared what I did with Linda, she sort of looked at me like, it's not going to work that way. But what it did for me was so profound and so huge. And what she really helped me to see is that there was nothing wrong with me. That there was nothing wrong with me, just like there's nothing wrong with any one of you here, or anyone. And I hadn't seen that before in a way that I felt it. I might have had the idea before, but it wasn't a felt knowing that there's nothing wrong with me. And so to have the experience that there's really nothing wrong with me means that there's nothing wrong with my experience of insecurity or sadness or low mood or all the things that I thought the understanding was going to help me to improve so that I wouldn't have. What it did was it helped me to see that that's just all part of my humanness. It's just all part of my humanity, just like it's part of everyone's humanity. And that there's nothing that I need to run from. There's nothing that I need to hide from. And that I can just be with that. And the being with that without trying to change it was so freeing. And it also changed my relationship with the experience. The experience became a lot more manageable. And so, you know, one of my favorite Sydney Banks quotes, and I'm probably not going to say it correctly, but is the one where he said, if people would just learn not to be afraid of their experience, or were not afraid of their experience, that's enough to change the world. And really, that was a huge, profound impact on changing my world. And what I saw is that it was actually through embracing my humanness, through being with my humanity, that I had a deeper experience of myself, of my okayness, of my well-being. And that it was ordinary. It wasn't sort of something that needed to be a peak experience. It was something that was just very ordinary and practical. And at times it feels very extraordinary too, but I got a new relationship with that part of myself that's okay no matter what, in a way that was just really plain. And that's not what I'd been looking for either, because I thought it was going to be something that was, sorry, it's a fly. I thought it was going to be something special. And to realize that, oh, it's ordinary. And it's ordinary for all of us. It's right here for all of us. And so that was a 180 in my life. That was something that sort of really changed a lot of how I worked with clients. I was a therapist. I still am a therapist. I was working with clients, and it changed my work. It changed how I showed up in my relationship. It changed parenting. Like, it just changed every area of life from how I was seeing it. And it became so much more simple than I thought it was. And that's why there's only the beginning. And that's why we're going to just keep revisiting the beginning, because it really is so simple. But each time we go back and look more deeply at what the understanding shows us, we have the opportunity to see something new. And so there's some of us that have been in the understanding a really long time, much longer than me, and some that are really brand new. But I want to encourage everyone to just be fresh and to not know, and to give yourselves the space to just really be curious and see what shows up for you. And to let yourself be wherever you're at, and allow yourself to kind of allow whatever wants to bubble up to come up. And so there's no questions that, you know, can't be asked. There's no beginner questions that you shouldn't be asking. There's no needing to know more. Like, it's all out on the table and open for anyone. And really, it's going to be an organic process. This is something that we as a group are going to create together. We're all students along the way. Every teacher would say the same thing, that they're students along the way too. And so we get to co-create a really beautiful journey, and we get to allow ourselves to settle and to get quiet and get reflective. And it's wonderful to be in a group experience. So you'll have the group connection, you'll have the friendships and all of that. But it's also an opportunity to go within and to touch in and go inward, because ultimately that's where everything is. It's going to be inside. And I wanted to, I was thinking about this part of it. I was wanting to share a little bit about side effects from participation. And I felt like one of those pharmaceutical commercials where they have this like really fast blah, blah, blah. But obviously the intent is for everybody to connect more deeply with themselves, to feel more peace of mind, lighthearted. Like obviously those are the things that we're looking in the direction of. But there's some other things that I just want to mention that you might not recognize as forward movement or what I would even call progress along the way that I just wanted to speak to, just, to put it out there. So one of the things, and this is based on my experience and also feedback from other people, but one of the things that can happen when people come to a weekend like this and really settle down and get reflective is that sometimes people can get really tired. The days aren't very long. We start at 4. We're going to have a nice long lunch break, finish around 4:30. It's not like we're doing a lot, but it just seems like there's a lot going on inside. So if you get really tired, it's okay. Don't worry about it. That's why the days aren't marathon 14-hour days. Take care of yourself. Let yourself rest and just be gentle. And especially if you've been on the go, 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 the nervous system, when it starts to settle, you want to give it that time to settle down. So just want you to know that that's actually a good thing, probably, if you're starting to feel tired. It means you're slowing down. The other thing that can happen sometimes for people, because we are going to be all pointing to the same thing in the same way, various times over and over again, sometimes you can feel bored. And that's not a problem either, because the mind, when it starts to slow down, boredom is often one of the experiences that we have as our mind starts to settle. So again, it's nothing to freak out about. The more you can just allow yourself to be with whatever's present for you, the more you're just going to kind of be with what is and let it move through you. There was one other thing I thought about, but I can't remember it right now. But in terms of seeing the impact of what it's like to let yourself really settle and get reflective, we tend to not give ourselves that gift in a regular way. And so when we do it in such an intentional way, just allow whatever comes up to happen. Just like in homeopathy or in physical healing, sometimes when the body isn't feeling well and it starts the healing process, some of the symptoms can come up, or sometimes symptoms come up from 6 months ago that start to show, I remember what the other one was, start to show up. And that's just all part of the healing process. And the other thing that I got feedback on, some people experienced last time, was sometimes people started to feel more self-conscious about certain things. They started to notice things about themselves and felt uncomfortable with it. And rather than that being something that's a problem, it's just recognizing that when we have a deeper understanding, we're going to see everything differently. And so some of the things that we didn't even notice before are going to start to be more noticeable to us. So an example I can use is that in terms of, I'll talk about my relationship with Angus. He's in the room, so I can talk about him. But I might have previously, when I was really sped up, and he'd always say, you get really stern. And it was completely invisible to me. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I didn't notice it. He didn't like it. It seemed like I was the same. But as I started to settle and started to get more reflective and quiet, I would notice that, oh yeah, I do change. And it was completely invisible to me before. And when I noticed it, it wasn't something like, oh, I love that about myself. It was like, oh God. So it was like, oh, but that's learning. That was me growing. That was me seeing. And when I could see it and had my own internal feedback about it, it was a natural learning curve that I was on. So whatever that learning curve is going to look like for all of you, I just encourage you to be kind and gentle with yourself. And if you have any concerns about it, please feel free to ask. But it can seem a little paradoxical at times. And it's okay to just let yourself have whatever the experience is and know that it's going to move through you, and that fundamentally every single one of us is absolutely okay, no matter what your experience is. And finally, before I introduce Aaron, the final note that I want to say is that this, for me, because Angus and I have sort of been cultivating the space for this program, and when I kept thinking about it, the word that kept coming to my mind was love. Like, I really just kept thinking about creating a container of love, creating a container that allows each one of you to be exactly who you are. And it's not about a giving of love. To me, it's more about a dropping into love, a dropping into who you are and the experience of that. And to me, love is just one of the words that comes up around that. And so that just feels really present. And I can't think of anything that's more fun and healing and inspiring than having that container for all of us to just sort of blossom into and see what unfolds from that. So welcome. And this weekend, we've got Dr. Aaron Turner. And Aaron is a mentor of mine, and he mentored with George and Linda Pransky for many years. He studied directly with Sydney Banks as well, and he's a co-founder of One Thought Institute. Is it One Thought Institute or just One Thought? And he does corporate organizational trainings globally. He also does practitioner trainings, and when I was thinking about the impact Aaron's had on my life, he's been profoundly helpful in terms of the organizational and corporate work that I've done. But one of the places that he's really touched my heart the most is in terms of parenting, and how helpful he's been in some very low moments of mine when I've been really kind of pulling my hair out or feeling like a really bad mom. And one of the metaphors I remember him sharing with me, Angus and I had one of a very difficult previous day with one of our daughters. And I really felt like I had showed up as not a good mother. And I was really feeling bad for how much my daughter was suffering. And I was feeling bad for how poorly I had behaved in the face of her suffering. And fortunately, I had a call with Aaron. And the metaphor he shared with me, he said, Rohini, in nightclubs when you have a wristband, I'm like, yes, what is he talking about? And how is this relevant to my pain and suffering right now? But I'm like, yes, I know this. And he said, well, all that's happened is that you're letting thoughts in that don't have that wristband on, and you're thinking that they should be allowed in. And I'm like, you're right. That's brilliant. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was just in this massive thought storm of self-judgment, and none of those thoughts belonged there, but I was just letting them all in. And him saying that with me just helped kind of wake me up and realize that, I don't have to run with them. I don't have to buy into that. And I can just let myself settle and just see that I'm just really stirred up right now and really scared. And so it was really, really helpful. But Aaron, thank you so much for coming all the way from England. Come join me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it maybe when I move? Okay. All right. Is it safe? Maybe not. Is it mine back? Okay,
Oh,
can
maybe
you hear
it's me.
Oh, I don't know.
I thought I'm good. I'm good.
It must be Rohini. It's all her fault.
Well, the sound's coming from over there, so it can't be me.
I think, does it stop? We good?
Yeah. Good.
Okay. All right.
Great. Maybe it's the cushion.
Yeah, there you go. Get rid of that cushion. I love the socks.
Thank you. Yeah, me too.
So I think it is me because when I move, it's like that game Operation,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I'll have to be like a statue. Am I okay? Okay. All right.
I want new batteries.
Yeah, you got jet lag.
Yes, please change my batteries. That's exactly what I want. You can do that? That's amazing. That's good. Anyway.
So do you want to share a little bit about why you said yes to
Yeah,
coming to this
I do.
program? And
I do. Well, it's really nice to be here with you all. And I've been really looking forward to being here. And I was thinking, you know, when I first came across the understanding of the mind that Sydney Banks pointed to and kind of started this, people talking about this. At first I came across it and I thought, God, this is a load of rubbish. You know, I feel badly for people that sit around thinking about themselves and thinking about their thinking and thinking about how they feel and thinking about things that just get in the way of getting on with life. So I didn't want to get involved with it at all. I just thought it was a complete waste of time. Because what he was pointing to and what George and Linda were pointing to was invisible to me. And it's invisible to most people. And even when it's visible, it's something that people see, but they don't really understand it. You know, like when something's partially visible, you know there's something there, but you don't really know what it is. Like, you know, maybe this is just me, but you wake up and it's dark and you think you see something in your room that you've never seen there before. And you, well, how the hell is that? You know, and the light's just not right. It looks like something it's not. And so you essentially misunderstand it. Well, most people, in my opinion, most people are in that boat. But what Sydney Banks did is he saw it outside of the camouflage of normal life, of the human experience, of the personal experience. And so he could point to it in a way that people could kind of catch onto it. And then when they caught onto it, it's kind of like, it's exactly like that thing that you see in your room that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You keep looking at it. You're like, can't be that. I don't have one of those. And then you keep looking at it until it makes sense. Oh, it's my jacket on the chair. And oh, okay, cool. Fine. This is just me that does this. I need another hobby, a different hobby. So and it's like what Rohini was saying. It's like you have this curiosity that you can start to see it in life, within you, in other people, in kind of what you're doing, and you can start to see the symptoms of it in your life, you know, which I didn't have a clue about before looking in the direction of the principles. I was at the effect of the way that I was thinking, and I had no idea I was at the effect of the way I was thinking. And I was literally living in a circle thinking I was making great progress. And I had no idea. Other people had idea. Other people could see it in me, just like I could see it in them. I thought I was doing great. They were all going around in circles. I'm like, ooh, that's too bad for them. But I didn't see it in me. And that gave me the chance to see it in me. And when I first came across it, I thought, oh, this is a way of thinking better. This is a way that you can think better. And if you think better, you can think clearer, you can do better. And what it took me a long while to realize is, no, it's not that, Aaron. It's like, this is a way of recognizing what the elements are in your experience. It's purely understanding. It's purely an understanding. And if you listen to Sydney Banks' recordings, you'll see here he talks about, oh, there are facts. You can catch a glimpse of a fact. And the thing is, if you catch a glimpse of a fact, you can't go back on that. There's something that's true that you hadn't seen before. As soon as you suspect it might be true, you can't go back on that. Because if you suspect something might be true that is true, you'll see whether it is or not. And you can't go back on that once you see that. And to me, that's just been incredibly valuable. As Rohini said, it's very easy to be focused on what you're trying to do and trying to do it better. It's not so normal to look at, well, what's behind that? Which is where the power is. It's like, what's driving it? What makes it alive or useful or helpful or unhelpful or debilitating or enabling? That's what you're going to be taking a look at over the next 10 weekends and the office hours and webinars and everything. And it's just a wonderful thing to be able to step back and look in that direction, just purely for understanding. So most of the work that I do is within organizations or with practitioners. Most of it's within organizations. And we're employed for a reason. And the reason generally isn't just, yeah, we want to just understand something. It's not really like that. So we'd go talk to someone that runs a company and they're like, well, we're going to get out of this. I'm like, well, what do you want? Well, we want to, we want to get ready for sale and we need our leadership team to step up and they're in 2 camps and we want those 2 camps to get on with each other. And I'm like, cool. For that purpose, we will be looking at how the mind works and how that plays into what you're doing, how it plays into what's currently happening. So really, we're giving an understanding, but they're not there just to get an understanding. They're there to get an understanding in order for something to happen, which is cool because understanding changes everything. But it's still a purer version just to be here to talk about understanding and to be here with people that are interested in understanding, because we can go straight to the essence because we're interested in the essence. And that's what I was really attracted to about what Rohini and Angus are doing and Rohini's vision for the program is let's look at the essence, just because that's the essence, and get a feel for it. It doesn't matter what we call it, doesn't matter how we talk about it. It matters what we're looking towards, what we're getting an appreciation of. And most of my, maybe this is just in my head, but most of my work is not like that. We're looking towards an understanding, but it has to be appreciable in a certain way. They're not there just, I'm just here for an understanding. Whatever you got to say, I'm interested in it. It's not like that. And I have to approach it that way, which is challenging for me. But it really appealed to me to be able to just get together with people that were interested just in looking in the direction of understanding and be able to just talk about it and look at it and kind of get a feel for it. However, so that really, when I look out there, there aren't many programs like that. I can't think of another one, so it's very unique, but it's very powerful. It's really powerful just to be looking for understanding and to be unconditional about the way in which you look towards it. I think that's very cool. So I was really keen to be a part of it, and thrilled that I'm here and at the beginning of it, when we're just getting going. And I've been looking forward to it. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I think that with that ability to just look at understanding, the impact that has on all those other things. Like if Aaron was able to go into a corporation and just talk about understanding and have them want to just understand, the results would probably be even greater. Yeah. Because part of what I saw is that when programs were looking at application, because I had done programs looking at entrepreneurial focus, Angus and I do a lot of relationship focus work. So looking at application, people listen with the application on their mind. And when we listen with application on our mind, we're thinking about how does this fit with, how is it going to work? How am I going to do it? And because of that machinery moving, we're not necessarily as open to be impacted by the understanding. And what I noticed in myself was that the more I was just curious about the understanding and the experience of it, the experience of the understanding within myself, the experience of being connected with the essence of myself, that life just started to transform without me trying to transform it, without me trying to improve it, because I had certainly been focused on optimizing before. And so it's not that, oh, I'm going to do this so that all of you can get that, but I just saw how rich that is to have that clear intention to look at our essence, because the essence of the understanding is our essence. It is not something that's outside of ourselves. It is something that is us. And so we're looking at that depth within ourselves and then being open to what unfolds from there in our life.
I was thinking that while Rohini was talking, I know I shouldn't have been, but I was.
Bad modeling.
Yeah. But I just want you to be free to just feel free to do whatever you want. And even if it's things you think you're not supposed to. So I'm modeling that. I was sitting there thinking while she was talking. And nothing bad happened to me. I'm okay. I think I'm good. So, but I had the thought, it's really interesting. It came to mind, and Chip and Elsie talk a lot about this, but that idea that you know already, but you don't know that you know. The way they were saying, like I remember we were in a discussion. I was thinking it was Chip and Elsie and George and Linda and the staff at Pransky and Associates, and someone was saying, "Oh, well, I only understand so much. I'm not enlightened." And then they said, "Well, you're enlightened already. You just don't know it." And that's the point of looking towards the essence. It's all already there. Not that you're supposed to get it all, but that idea that it's all there already. That's a radical idea. That's really, really radical, which means you don't need to do anything to get it. You don't need to get anything you don't already. And actually, I was thinking for this evening, with you guys starting out on this program, that it might be nice to kind of just talk a little bit about how that learning, the main thing that I've seen in terms of that learning over the years. I thought that might be a nice thing to talk about, and how there's this dance between our ability to think and what comes through our thinking on its own. That our thinking is kind of like a gateway to, I don't know, what we don't know we know. Our thinking is kind of like a gateway to mind, to like an ability to know, or what we already know, or what's already there, or wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, the essence of mind, which maybe we'll talk more about now or tomorrow or whatever. We'll see. And we also have the ability to think. But it's my experience over the years that I didn't really see that dynamic. I didn't really see that dynamic clearly. So I remember when I started my internship at Pransky and Associates, they were doing a professional training in Minnesota, and I went to it because I was really interested to learn. And I went with George, and it was George and Linda and Christine Heath were doing it. And I was sitting there, and I hadn't done much learning in this. Hey there. And I was sitting there, and as I'm sitting there taking it in, something just really hit me that was brand new, that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I started to think about what it was that I learned and what it meant. And two things happened when I did that. The first thing is I disappeared from the room, right? So I had this thing occur to me, and now I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking about what it means and what I can learn from it and how it would be relevant, and which felt really like the right thing to do. You learn something, you kind of, at least to me, you make the most of it. And then I noticed that within about 15 seconds, I had no idea what it was anymore. Didn't have a single clue. It was totally gone, completely gone. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the relevance of it was. And it was completely dry. Absolutely. There was no feeling there. There was no nothing there. And I saw in that moment, wow, I basically thought it away. I just completely disappeared it. I kind of, and I hadn't really realized before that point how natural it was to see something new, to have something new occur to you, and how invisibly I would try to learn by thinking about it. And all the learning would just disappear, it would evaporate. That feeling of freshness and learning and wonder just kind of all disappeared. I didn't even know what I was thinking about anymore. It's like there was something here, and over the years, that understanding of, well, how do I learn? What's going on when I learn? What's happening? Because at first I had the idea that I was learning things I didn't know. And so I had to be looking at what I was trying to learn, and I had to be in some way figuring it out, and filling in the gaps and kind of making the most. And the amount of time that I've spent thinking about the principles in order to try to learn something new, I can't tell you. If I hadn't spent that time, I dread to think how young I'd be if I hadn't spent all that time. But there was a way in which I didn't appreciate how little you can learn from thinking. That you can't learn from thinking because you're in your own mind and you already know everything in your own mind. There's nothing new for you to learn in your own mind. Your own mind is kind of what you've pieced together from what you've learned. And some of it is insight and a lot of it's made up. And if you want to know the reason why you don't learn more, it's because of what you got in there. Like we treat what we've learned as if it means something. And it took a while to see, well, actually, you can treat what you've learned as if it means nothing because you've already had the value out of it. You've already gotten what it has to give you, and it can't take you further than you've already gone. So it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. It makes sense to be interested in kind of the blank space. And it's not always comfortable to just sit in the blank space. Feels like you should be focused on something or considering something or, thinking about something. But over the years, I've seen that in the act of thinking about things, you kind of distracted in a way, preoccupied and distracted and getting a feel for it. And at first it feels like faith that when you're not preoccupied, you see things, you just notice things, you see things occur to you. And that's how you see truth, is that instead of thinking about the stuff that is essentially structured within your own way of understanding things, so you're learning to date, both the insights and the made up conclusions, you you don't need to do anything except have space in your head. Because in the space in your head, you notice things you wouldn't otherwise notice, right? So before I learned about the principles, I was thinking full time. And I literally noticed nothing. So when I learned a bit about the principles and I realized, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense to be thinking all the time. What I saw originally was you don't get clarity from thinking. You get clarity when you're not thinking. Things occur to you when you're not. And I thought, oh my God, then what am I doing? I'm thinking full time. And it's in the odd moments when I'm taking a break or I'm distracted that I get all the clarity. And that's been enough for my entire life. But it was kind of by accident. So then I thought, well, oh yeah, then walking around thinking doesn't really make any sense. And I walked down the hill from my mum's house to the subway station. I saw things I'd never seen before. And I walked that way every day to and from school for 18 years. And then had another 7 years of my adult life. And there were things I'd never seen before. And here's the interesting part. Not that I just saw them. It did something for me to see them. I appreciated it. There was a richness to the seeing that I had never seen before. And that richness, I won't get distracted by that again. And that richness was eaten up by the thinking. It was just eaten up by that processing. And that idea that you can go round in your head by thinking, but you can't go deeper. You can't see anything new and you can't see anything more fundamental. That's just stuff you stumble on when you're not distracted. Now, the good news is you can be as distracted as you like. You'll stumble on it anyway. So it's not like I want you to get paranoid of thinking. You can think plenty and still have moments where you stumble on things. But it's just really interesting to start to appreciate, oh, you don't need to do anything to learn because you're just getting familiar with something that was there already. That actually, this is fascinating part, that on a non-intellectual level, you know already. You just haven't recognized it more consciously. You know, so I had a client, I think it was last week, and this was fascinating. I was really looking forward to seeing him because he was suffering so much. He runs a business, but he had become really bogged down in negativity, and he'd gotten really self-conscious. And when he got really self-conscious, didn't want to see his friends, and so he didn't want to go out, and then so he's staying at home, and he's not enjoying his work, and he's not doing a good job, and he's just really having a hard time. And I could see, oh yeah, you just don't understand. You're experiencing your own thought, and it's kind of up to you which thoughts you consider relevant. You have no idea that, you know, it's you that's turning left. You going left and saying, oh, what the hell, I'm always left. I don't know what to do. So I was very hopeful about seeing him. But what was fascinating is when we started to appreciate what we were thinking of. Oh, sorry. I said I wouldn't get distracted, but. Oh, check battery. Should I check my battery?
Okay, we can put it next to it.
Just put your batteries in and just maybe right.
Should we? Okay. We safe? I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
The interesting part was, firstly, I mean, obviously he started to see that what he was experiencing was nothing more than thought. So obviously he realized when he felt it, he didn't have to take it to heart. So he didn't always have to go that same way. But what was fascinating to me was he was living with a complete lack of appreciation for that, and a complete lack of appreciation for underneath that thought, there was nothing wrong with him, right? So underneath that thought, he had all the confidence in the world, all the creativity in the world, all the well-being in the world. He had everything. He did not know that before. He didn't know that. And he didn't know that what he was experiencing was just, so this is brand new to him, right? And revolutionary to the way that he was living. But it was interesting because he said, you know, this has really been profoundly useful. I feel like I'm remembering it.
Mm.
I feel like I'm remembering it. I don't feel like I'm learning it. It's like I feel like I knew this. I think that's profound, really profound. And I was thinking when, you know, again, when I was thinking of coming here, and I realized that when I was a younger kid, my mind made sense to me naturally. A lot of the things that we talk about that I learned through the principles was part of the way that just life made sense. I knew I was all right. And a lot of the reactivity that I saw around me just didn't make any sense. It just didn't make any sense. Like my mom's anxiety was kind of funny. It didn't really make any sense. You know, like she'd get frantic every time we left the house. She'd forgotten something. It was a different thing every time, but it was the same thing every time. So we'd just wait outside. Yeah, she'll be fine in a minute. She'll realize it's not a real thing. And then she'd come out. Or, you know, people would get upset at school and be like, what's that about? Like, what is that? What are they doing? So there's kind of an innateness to the understanding that, like, even for that guy, was brand new to him, but it was like he knew it already, but he didn't know that he knew it already. And that's why you don't really need to think to learn. You don't need to think to learn, because you're not learning a concept. You're not learning a theory. You're not learning a process. You're just seeing, actually not even seeing, you're getting a feel for something that's already there. And what's amazing is it's something you've felt already. You know, it's not like you're feeling something you never felt. Like you might have new experiences, but it's something you felt already. All of what we're talking about, you felt already. And it's just getting a feel for how it makes sense. But the deepest part of it, the essence part of it, I think is something that, because it's already true and it's something we already are, there's a way in which it kind of already makes sense, but because of the way that we think about life, we haven't really appreciated how much it makes sense. So in a way, the journey that you're on in this program is just a chance to get really comfortable and confident about that, so that you can kind of step back from trying to understand and really start to appreciate what's already there when you're not trying to understand, and appreciating it and kind of being a student of that, which is very, very rich, because in a way you're allowing yourself to step back from all the trying and the thinking and the figuring it out, and get sensitive, just get a bit more appreciation and sensitivity to what's there already, like what you know already, what you feel already, what you are already, and kind of just get a bit of an appreciation for that, which is quite nice, because then you can get more confident about it, on the one hand, this is where the outcomes come from. You get more confident about that. Oh, I'm feeling something that's already there. I'm benefiting from something I already am. Like I was at this one program once, and somebody stood up and said, well, if we are already this well-being and intelligence, then what are we talking about it for? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. Makes it seem like there's more to it than there really is, you know. But also on the other side, we're able to have all these different kinds of thoughts. You know, it could be loneliness, it could be anxiety, as Rohini said, it could be self-consciousness, it could be terror, it could be discomfort and insecurity. We're able to have those and know that, well, that's not really where it's at. That's right. That's just the fluctuations of the dressing of it. That's not really a thing, which is awesome to be able to see, oh, it's not a thing to have painful thought. You can make it into a thing, and you know when you've made it into a thing because it's a thing. Help me, I'm having this thought, you know, and I get that way too. It's like, I need help. I'm having this thought. I don't like it. But it's nice to know, oh, it's having thought is not a thing until you make it a thing. And then you realize, oh, okay, I'm making it a thing. You know? So it helps you on both ends, where you can more easily have all these thoughts and feel like, well, who's afraid of the big bad thought? And on the other hand, you can have more appreciation for what's behind it and more confidence about that. Like when I first started to learn this, I felt like I was connecting to my well-being. You know, so it's like the sound thing, you know. So I was constantly fiddling with the wire, trying to get the thing to come through properly. And I felt like that was on me. And that there was a fair amount of thinking involved. Now, how am I doing now? Am I connecting? I think I'm connecting. I was a minute ago. Now I'm not so much. What am I going to do? Okay, do a clearer mind. It's not working. I think that's a thought. Can you stop that thought? Yes, I stopped that thought. How am I doing now? That's a thought. Stop that one. And you get, you know, it drives me nuts. But behind it was a lack of appreciation. In my understanding, there was a separation between me and mind. I was connecting to mind, or I was disconnected from mind. And it took me ages to consider, though, that's impossible. That's impossible. If I disconnected from mind, there would be nothing animating me. I would be like, huh? And to start to appreciate, yeah, you might not feel it, but that's the magic of thought. It's like thought creates the experience of reality. But if you don't feel connected, then it's illusory reality. So how can you not be connected? If you're feeling something, it's mind. The way you feel it is thought. See? So it's tricky. It's really, really tricky. But it took me a while to realize, oh, I'm always connected because it's me. It's me. I'm out here walking around. If I'm animated, then I'm walking around. Then there's a consciousness there. I felt something. I had a thought. I thought about that's consciousness. I had consciousness. Okay, I have consciousness through my thought. I have mind. I have intelligence. I have energy. Energy, right? That's mind. So starting to realize, oh, I'm worrying about something that's completely unavoidably 100% constantly true. Seems a bit silly when you put it like that. And then that was a shift in understanding. And it'd be nice to consider, oh, that's interesting. Like when we think about things in order to understand them, they get more complicated. They're not complicated. but they seem it. Right? You ever had a decision to make and you thought about it and it felt impossible, and then you give up and you're like, oh man, I can't, man. Oh, why didn't I think of that? Same with your learnings, the same. And I thought it'd be nice because you'll start to appreciate. Like when I first started learning this, I thought I was supposed to do something different. Oh, thinking doesn't help. Just stop it then. Good luck with that. Shit, I can't stop it. Try harder. That's making it worse. So, but think as you might, figure out as you might, complicate as you might, you'll still learn. Because you're appreciating, well, because you are an intelligence and because you're getting a feel for something that is true and that we are, so we really do understand it at a certain level. It's not a level we're always sensitive to, but it is a more fundamental level, so you really do. So I thought that would be nice to kind of just have some sense of, so you can, instead of trying to learn a certain way or you can start to see, you could, because that really helps, is appreciating how things change when the way that you use your mind changes. That's really useful, appreciating. So most people that I work with, they want to do something about it. They want to do it more the right way and do it less the wrong way. And what I've seen is the more you appreciate how it works, the more freedom you have. And you go about things in a more sensible way just because you appreciate how it works. But everybody wants to skip the appreciating step and get to the doing it right step. They don't even know what right is. So they're like, how'd you do it right? I'm like, do what right? Well, the thinking thing. Oh, well, do you know how thinking works? Well, can you tell me? Yeah, but that doesn't help. You have to appreciate it. It kind of, and the good thing is it's happening all day, every day. So there's plenty of time to get a peek at it, to get a sense of it.
Oh.
And it's the naughty camera.
I think it's you, Shannon.
Oh, and do it again. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Rachel, you have a question?
Do you have the?
Is it on?
Oh, is it on?
I appreciate what you're saying. I was listening a couple weekends ago to George and Linda and Elsie and the program that they had. And one of the things that George was sharing and he kept saying was, people don't have enough respect when they have an insight. They're always looking for the next insight and the next insight. It's like, it reminds me of what you're saying. Like you have to appreciate kind of what's happening. And I have a client that I'm working with who reminds me a little bit of your client. He is a pretty miserable guy all the time, and tension, headaches, and migraines, and digestive problems, and work stress, and just misery. And he got married a few weeks ago, and I was at the wedding because I know him and his wife, and he was delightful. No symptoms. Everything was great. He took 5 days off work, and his family was there, and his friends, and we were out in the mountains, and it was great. And then back to work, misery. And I said to him, Nick, it seemed like at the wedding you felt pretty good. Did I miss that? And he said, no, the wedding was great, but it's not the wedding every day. And it occurred to me how superficial his upset was. If so instantly it could be gone for a few days and then instantly come back.
Yes.
And so I pointed that out to him, and he was like, well, no, because now I'm back at work. So now I'm miserable again. If I didn't have to work, then I wouldn't be miserable. And I was like, And I kind of got stuck because it seemed so clear to me, again, like how superficial it was.
Yes.
Like if it was real, then he wouldn't have been able to turn it off for the wedding for a few days. And I said that to him, and to him, it's so fundamentally linked to work. If I was, independently wealthy and I didn't have to work, I'd be happy for that.
Yes.
But since I have to work, then I'm miserable and I have all these symptoms and life is terrible and there's no way out.
Yes.
And I was like, great, let's talk again next week. I got nothing else. Like, I didn't know. It was I saw it. He just didn't see it. He was just like in his misery.
Yeah.
But he wasn't appreciating. I was like, I so appreciated, like, wow, look what a great couple days Nick is having. Like, that felt so hopeful to me, not hopeful to him. None.
But that's the, was it, did I interrupt you? Did you have a question?
No, that was it.
Yeah, but that's a perfect example of why this program is such a great idea, because the problem there is the understanding. So we all suffer because we all have thought, and thought creates all these different kinds of realities that we experience as sensorily real. Like it's very rare. It's the minority of thoughts that are just cognitive. Most of them are perceptual and emotional and like rock solid. They feel rock solid, like you could put your tea on it and it would stay there, And so we come to the conclusion that it must be coming from somewhere real, right? And that's a huge misunderstanding. That will ruin your day if you think that what you're feeling is coming from somewhere other than it's being made up by thought. That will mess with you big time. So I was on the tube in London, and it was the summer, and I was going to work with one of my colleagues. We were going to do a training, and I live at a commuter stop, so like you go to the tube station, it looks like ants. There's just people pouring in. There's a car park there. There's just people pouring in there. And everyone gets on at my stop. And we like this. I'm holding the thing. I'm like this. And I got someone's arms like this. And we're standing there. And all of a sudden, I start to feel like I'm hot. I'm really hot. Oh my God, I'm hot. And I'm uncomfortable. Oh my God, I'm hot and I'm uncomfortable. Oh my, I can't stand it anymore. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I can't take it on. How long till the next stop? And I'm starting to feel this tension build, and I'm starting to feel really like I'm freaking out. I'm standing there like this. But inside, I am freaking out, like properly freaking out. And I feel like when that door opens, I'm going to get out. Now, what's really interesting is every tube stop is about 90 to 150 seconds, right? Pretty much all of them are around 90 to 120 seconds. But this is feeling like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because time is spreading out as my suffering is expanding. All this suffering thought is in there, and I'm really feeling like if I don't freak out by the time this next door opens, I'm getting off. I got to get off. And again, I'm just standing there like this. But inside, I'm totally freaking out. And I swear to God, that was real. That was real. Like I was going to get off, and the door opens and I got to get off. And I thought, really? You're going to get off? Then what are you going to do? Like you're going to get on the next one, or you're just going to wait for half an hour till rush hour's over? Like, really? Really? You're going to do this? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay on. I hate being late. See, I don't want to be late. And the door closes, and I'm fine. I'm utterly fine. I'm in the same carriage. It's probably hotter because additional people have got on. I've been in there longer. And I went like another 10 stops. It felt like 5 minutes, wasn't it? So with the thought, it was unbearable. And the thought was claiming the tube is driving you crazy. You got to get off. You can't be in this carriage any longer. But I was in the carriage without the thought. I was fine, totally fine. That's a truth that our experience covers over. Right? Like when I get stressed at work, I think I'll feel better when I can go home. That's what I think. I'll feel better on Saturday. I'll be all right. That's how I feel. But it's not true. It's just not true. But if you think it's true, you will be victimized by the thought as if it's coming from work. Right? Now, the evidence, what you saw is true. Suffering is superficial. because it's always made a thought. It doesn't feel superficial, but it is superficial. But the problem is the person's understanding. That's the problem. And that's what he's saying to you. It's like, yeah, well, you know, maybe if I could get married every day, I'd be fine. You know? But you're like, well, what's that got to do with it? Because you see it coming from the mind. He sees it coming from his circumstance. But that and this is true for us too, every little misunderstanding will make our life more complicated and less pleasant. And we got plenty. But you can't address it outside of the understanding. You can't address it because the misunderstanding is causing the problem. You can't stop people suffering because that comes from thought. We live in thought. And you can't say, well, I'm just going to have the thoughts that make nice feelings. You can't do that, as far as I know. So you can't do anything about that. But the problem comes when you have the thought, how do you understand it? So then what do you make of it? So he's buying it, hook, line, and sinker, work. But if he saw that wasn't true, then he'd be in a different place. Does that make sense? So like in my opinion, the only thing that needs to be addressed is the understanding. The only thing that needs to be addressed. And that's true in my life too. It's true in my life. Like there are areas of my life where I believe I would feel better if something in the circumstances changed. And then I behave as if my thought is real. And someone says, what's up with you? I'm like, well, what do you mean what's up with me? I'm at the effect of this situation. And I'm just like your client when I'm like that. But what's cool is I can find it because at some point I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then I'm free again, which is so grateful for. So grateful for. And if your client sees that, then he'd be grateful for it. And I see what's really cool. Because we are an intelligence, the intelligence of life in action through thought. When you point to what's true, if people, even if they don't take a look, but especially if they took a look, they'll see. So I had this client and he was sent to me because every time he got upset, he would just take it so seriously. He would get really upset, and then he would hold it onto it, a grudge. So at work, he was really sensitive because he'd get upset so easily. He'd get really upset every time he'd get upset, and he'd hold onto it for a long time. So he's just getting worse and worse over time. He's like, he was just causing all sorts of problems. People didn't even want to speak to him because he might blow up, and it would all, nobody liked it. So they sent him to me, and I said, well, look, we need to get it so that you don't get so upset and you get over it easier and all of that. And he said, well, I don't know what you can do about that because it's not me. I'm like, well, what do you mean it's not you? He says, well, it's work, they do lots of bad things. There's lots of things that just aren't right. They're not fair. They're not right. They're not good. So it's not me. I'm just affected by, the unfair, messed up crap that happens at work. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to want you to consider that you're experiencing a thought version of it that you could have a different relationship to. So, well, Aaron, I don't know why you're talking to me because it's all the crap that happens at work. I said, yeah, I know. But I'm going to want you to consider that you're experiencing a thought version of it that you can have a different relationship to. It's like, so you're trying to tell me there's not stupid crap happening at work? I'm like, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying even in the face of stupid crap that happens at work, right? So we spent 3 days where he's pointing to his understanding, which is all this crap upsets me, and I'm sorry if I care, but what do you want me to do? Just pretend it's not happening? Because that doesn't work. So that's what he would do, is like he would essentially push it down, and then it would explode out again. And so we spent 3 days comparing understandings, basically. I said, well, look, I want you to consider that it's coming from your mind, and you could not react to this thought this way, and you could have new thought about this, because, you take the first one every time. This is, well, Aaron, what do you want me to do? Because the stupid stuff happens at work. And I didn't want to get in an argument with him, so I just kept saying it really clearly, really neutrally. I don't even think he heard me, hardly, right? He comes in on the 4th day. This was fascinating, I thought. He says, I think you might be right. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, I was lying in bed and I was thinking, God damn, that Aaron's talks a lot of garbage. He doesn't really understand. So his old understanding's talking to him. He doesn't really understand that these things are messed up, and it's not me taking them seriously. It's that they're serious things, And then it popped into my mind, what about your mortgage? And I realized that when me and my fiance were buying a house recently, and this serious thing happened where our mortgage was supposed to close, and we were told it wasn't going to close for 6 weeks, and that was really serious. But I didn't take it seriously. I just didn't take it seriously. And it just didn't affect me. Like my fiance just flew off the handle. But I kind of didn't take it seriously. So he showed himself that serious things could happen, and he didn't take it seriously. He showed himself that. And it took away his excuses. It was so interesting. And then he saw, and when I didn't take it seriously, I realized it was a really good thing that if we didn't start paying the mortgage for 6 weeks, we could get the sofa we wanted. And I wouldn't have seen that if I'd freaked out. So he saw, not only isn't it true that every time there's a serious thing, it affects him a certain way, he showed himself the evidence that took away his explanation. And the most fascinating thing was, when he lost his explanation, he saw it more insightfully. And now that same company is going through a really hard time. He's the voice of sanity. People don't. He's like, they're like, who's doing good? That guy. Because he knows you can't. It's not how serious the thing is that causes the feeling. It's how seriously you take it, and that's totally up to you. And when you take things seriously, you get a little crazy and you miss things. That's true. Now, it was true on day 1, but he wasn't willing to look. But what I think's fascinating is his intelligence, his wisdom, his knowing, or an impersonal knowing that already knew that, tapped him on the shoulder about that day 3. And he, in a way, he didn't have any choice. It just took his excuses away. I'll tell you something else really interesting is, we worked with this company for 6 years, and I'd been on his case about that. But what would happen is, I'd get on his case about it, he'd get resistance, and then I'd shove it in his face. I'd kind of rub his nose in it, which he didn't like. That's how sensitive he is. Get that? No? No? Okay. Yeah. And so when I worked with him for those 4 days, it was so cute, because at the beginning of the 4 days, to me, this is wisdom. And this is how we're all the same. We're all the same intelligence. That's what I love about this program. We can talk about, we can put that right on the table out front. We don't have to creep up on it. It's like we're all the same mind. We're literally the same mind. He didn't like me, obviously, because I was always getting in his face and criticizing him, basically. So, why are you such a baby? I didn't say it like that. I was much more professional about it. but essentially, because he was sensitive, I mean, because he took things personally, I was basically one of the last people he wanted to see, because I was always getting in his face and essentially making him feel bad about how bad he was feeling. So when his boss told him he had to work with me again, he didn't want to do it, obviously. But we sat down and we had this breakfast, and I decided, you know what? I don't want to be at odds with him. So I had to see my thinking as not helpful, because I didn't feel loving towards him. I didn't, you know how Rohini said a space of love? Like, we think of love as a special feeling for special people and special occasions, like weddings, right? But actually, it's your normal feeling. It's your real feeling. That's your real feeling. That's when you feel right. You know, when you start a relationship and it's all fresh and you're kind of in love and it's a honeymoon period, you feel yourself. There's no emotional friction between you and then between you and anybody else. And I just didn't feel that way about him. He annoyed the crap out of me. And that just didn't feel right. I knew I was not on solid ground within my own mind, because I didn't feel warmly towards him, and I didn't feel open towards him, and I didn't feel on his side. It just didn't feel neutral, like in a non-uncomfortable way. So we're at this breakfast, right, with him and his boss. And basically, I know that my feelings that make me feel unwarm and uncomfortable about him, that's me. That was not me, but that's me getting behind thoughts that put a shield between, you know, my heart and my mind and him, and my thinking about him. Right? So it's derailing my thinking about him into down the toilet. Right? And I knew I can't work with him like that, because I can't be on his side. I can't be neutral. I can't have my own kind of caring wisdom, right? Because wisdom is loving. It's an intelligence that that allows us to look after ourselves and other people and ultimately everything. So that's why as people start to feel better, they feel connected to everything. They feel connected to other people, and they feel connected to things, and, you know, their environment, plants, all that kind of stuff. So we're at this breakfast, and I'm decided I'm not taking on my reactive thinking about him. Why I didn't do that years ago, I don't know. But anyway, that's my understanding was off. So I'm there, and I'm really interested in what's going to work for him. Really interested, really interested. And we had this moment where I'm looking out for that, and then he said, I can't remember what it was, but there was this magical, like really magical moment. His boss is talking to him, he's talking to his boss. That was all very workaday, and it was very, you know, technical and whatnot. And then he said something. Yeah, that's what he said. He said something like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be told my experience is wrong. He's something like that. And because I was open, I wasn't in my, oh, there he goes again, the big baby. I heard it. I heard the importance that had for him. And I said, you know what? That we're going to do. That is really important. If you ever find me writing off your experience and whatever, you tell me, because I don't want to do that. That's really important. And he kind of went, oh, okay. And I meant it. So it was very heart to heart. And I said to him, but the thing is, we need to find a way where I can respect your experience, but I can point to possibilities that you haven't considered. Because if we just stick to your experience, how are we going to get beyond it? Like, he's like, well, so I said, well, is there any way you can be open to a new possibility. And he said, well, I don't know. I said, well, that would be really important. If we can validate your experience but not get stuck in it. And there was this moment where he saw he could trust me because I wasn't including my reactive thinking about him in the way that I was dealing with him. And he saw that he could trust me. And we had this moment where it was magical, actually. It was very human, but it was also beyond human. It was really, and his boss felt it as well. His boss was like, whoa, what was that? That was cool. And it was cool. And I thought, God, we can actually work together because it was real and it was outside of my thinking and it was outside of his thinking. And it had that fresh, real feeling of what we're like, what life is like when it's not just through our personal habitual thinking.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, that's great. It's a pleasure.
I love what you said in terms of like, we can just go right there. We are all one mind, and be able to just kind of experience that and know that we get caught up in our, our own separate reality, our thoughts about life and how it looks, but there's that deeper place that we feel. And that, when we feel that, we recognize it. It is a remembering. It is a recognition, and getting attuned to that and respecting it, I think, is so key, because I know for myself, it was something that it was just not important to me. It didn't seem like there was any value there. It felt like there was more to be gained from the doing and the achieving. But the recognition that it's in that feeling, that everything is there, that freshness, and to see what that is for you. Like when you're talking about it, I kind of feel that in myself. Like I recognize, like, yeah, that's what he means by freshness. So it's like, what's that experience like for you, and what's your appreciation for that? What's the respect that you give that versus sort of all of the other consideration in the mind? And there's just such an ease that comes, I think, when we see that, oh, that's where there's so much aliveness and so much creativity and love and all of those qualities. And that when we, when you were talking about walking down the street and not noticing the things, like I felt that aliveness. When you're seeing those things, it's like, oh, you're really there. What's it like to really be there and to really experience that and to see that that's who we naturally are? It's not something that we work at getting, but it's actually, when we get quiet, we naturally get there. And so to refamiliarize yourselves with that, and to sort of give yourself permission to not have much on your mind, to not have to be considering and working hard at thinking, but to really let yourself have that be a smaller amount of the energy that you spend in the day, and to see what shows up in that space.
Yeah. One of the most useful things that I learned was it doesn't matter whether you're thinking. It just matters that you're willing to accept what comes from it. Like I used to find myself thinking that, oh, I'm not going to be in a deeper place. Oh my God, I got to stop thinking. I'm doing the wrong thing. No, that's fine. The problem is when I'm thinking and I believe I'm going to get insight out of it. That's the problem. It'd be like going left and expecting to end up right. It just doesn't happen. And that's understanding. That's understanding. The understanding will cure everything. If you just come back to the simplicity of it. Like, oh, yeah, this doesn't make sense because I'm thinking about it. Things don't make sense when you think about it. They just get more complicated. Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Cool. Great. On the way to the airport yesterday, I had this person I was supposed to speak to because their son was in trouble, and they wanted to speak and see if I could recommend anybody. So he gets on the phone. I said, well, how are you doing? I'm not doing good. I'm really not doing good. So, okay. And so then he goes on and on about how he's not doing good. And he's thinking, I said, well, look, you just need to at some point, you got to recognize what's going on. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, look, you're just suffering because you're thinking, and that's what's going on. It's not a real problem. That's just a logical, natural thing that happens when you think a lot in an upsetting way. You get really upset. That's what happens. At some point, you got to just come to terms with what's happening. He's like, oh, wow, it's that simple. Like, yeah. Oh, that's really simple. Yeah, it is really simple. But that was it for him. He was totally fine, because when you kind of see what's going on and you understand it, there's nothing more. There's no confusion. There's nothing more you need. You know?
Jeannie.
So I find that there are times when I'm really caught up in my thinking, and then I'll catch myself caught up in my thinking, and then easily it just kind of disappears, and I just go, oh,
Yes.
wow, like that's what was going on right now.
Yes.
And then everything feels easy again. Then there are times when I'm caught up in my thinking, and then I go, oh, wow, I'm just thinking right now. And it doesn't do anything. And I'm still angry and mad and da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm like, wow, I'm really caught up in my thinking. Nothing changes. And then I start getting into the loop of more thinking, I guess, is what's going on. And then I'm like, why can't I stop this? Why isn't the magic pill working for this thought? And then I laugh at myself, right? So it's like there's this balance of like humor and catching myself and all that. But for some thoughts, it makes it stop and life's peaceful. For some other thoughts, those thoughts don't stop. How can that be?
And what was how do you think it can be?
That's a good question. I think with some of the ones that don't go away so easily, there's a lot of judgment, or there's still a resentment, or there's still, I think, a deeper layer of something I'm holding on to.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones are light, I guess, lighter and fluffier.
What's really interesting about what Sid pointed to was the difference is not in the thought. The difference is in the thinker. See, the difference isn't in the thought. Like, shall I get ham or cheese is made of exactly the same stuff as thoughts that feel deeper seated. It's all the same. That's the beauty of what we're considering, is all thought is the same energy in a different form. See, and the form has no substance to it. So it's not like this table. It is like this table, but it's not like this table in the sense that this table has a life of its own. No thought has a life of its own. It has no life of its own. It's just like cloud formations. It looks like a dog, but it doesn't stay like that for long. It's just energy in form. It's potential in form in our awareness, which means the answer is not there are different kinds of thought. It's not different kinds of thought. Thought is the function by which our mind takes the potential of mind and turns it into something that we feel particularly, right? So it's not in the answer's not in the thought. It's in the relationship to the thought that the person has, you know?
So then my thought right now goes, okay, great. What can I do different then
Well,
in my relationship to, you know?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is what Rohini talked about at the beginning. You're going to notice during these conversations that you have as part of this program that you'll hear something and there's going to be an inclination to do something with it in your thinking, to kind of interpret it or apply it or get clear on it or remember it, right? Or to extrapolate what it means you should do, okay? I want you to consider that none of that makes sense, right? Because at the base of it, what we're pointing to or what we're considering is we are a potential of mind, right? And we're experiencing that through thought. And if you have thought that doesn't feel good, or any thought, the point is to realize that it doesn't have substance. That's the point. So as soon as you want to do something with it, you miss that boat. The bus you're supposed to be on, you missed. And the bus you're supposed to be on is, God, given that we're by nature love and well-being, and that just varies because it's coming through this fluid function of thought, what have you got to worry about? Seriously. Well, I'm terrified. Yeah, okay, but that's thought, meaning it's essentially an unsustainable, fabricated reality. So the idea is to start to see, oh, what you're looking for you already have, and what you got that you don't like is completely made up and unsustainable. So if you really consider that, then there's nothing to do. Because what you don't like is on its way out, and what you want is an underlying fundamental constant, and what you don't like is an unsustainable variable. You see, but when we misunderstand that, we take the variable as if it's got substance, and then we get distracted trying to deal with it, which is the self-fulfilling prophecy of it seems more solid and enduring than it really is because we're in relationship to it. So the idea is to really consider that it doesn't matter what you think, because it's what's behind it that's the constant, right? So there's, as soon as we miss that, we start overreacting to thought, right? So when somebody says to me, what do I do about this thought? I'm like, oh, you don't really know what thought is, do you? You know, it'd be like having a hologram in front of your car and feeling like you can't drive in case you run it over. And you're saying, get the hologram out the way. And I'm saying, no, it's a hologram. I don't care what it is. I don't want to crash into it. Like, well, no, there's no crashing into a hologram. This is not going to happen ever. Why don't you try and crash into it? I'm not insured for hologram damage. and it's that. And then you'll start to see, what's fascinating is you'll start to see when you understand, because you have a feeling like, well, who's afraid of the big bad thought? Bring it on. Whatever. But I'm making it last longer. Yeah, fine, whatever. Make it last longer. See how long you can concentrate. Right? And then you'll see when you don't understand, and I'm the same way, because I'm like, I don't like it. What am I going to do? Get it away from me. It's touching me. I don't like it.
Yeah,
Right?
it feels like that.
Yeah. And that is a symptom of misunderstanding. The best analogy I can think of for this is when my son was quite young. When we left the States, I think he was 4 or 5. Before we left, we went to Disney, the one near here, Disney, whatever it is. Yeah, Disneyland. And I was super excited about the Star Wars ride. And the Star Wars ride was funny because it was like a shipping container. It was so crappy. It was like, we're going to go on the Star Wars ride? Yeah, it's in that shipping container. And there was this like crappy stairs that went up into this shipping container. And then when you got in there, it was like a movie theater in a shipping container. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But then the lights went off and the screen came on and the music came on and and it was moving around. And all of a sudden, you forgot that you were in a crappy shipping container, that you went up some stairs and you're like in the galaxy, like, woo, like you're in the galaxy. And I'm like, woohoo, this is awesome. And my son is like terrified. And I spent the whole time trying to lighten him up about it. But the reason I think it's such a good analogy is he forgot that he went up those stairs. He forgot that he went into this crappy look. There's no way that container could fly. Seriously. That thing was not going to fly. You know, well, I'm pretty sure I would bet it couldn't fly. Had no wings, had no motors on it, had no windows on it, nothing. So he'd forgotten. And it's a little movie theater. All the evidence that was freely available that we weren't really going to crash into a planet was gone, utterly gone. And that's what happens to us. In the immediacy of the sensory experience, we forget, oh yeah, I've had thought before. I think last time I was fine, you know? And we forget that there are some thoughts which we're totally fine with. Like it used to fascinate me that people that were phobic of certain thoughts, like say someone with an anxiety disorder, if you talk to them about anger, they're like, whatever, I don't really care. That's why they didn't have an anger problem, because it's like, what you do when you're angry? Oh, nothing. Why? Why would you do anything? Well, do you have trouble getting rid of that thought? I don't care. So it lasts. Well, it doesn't tend to, but it could last. I don't care. But it seems so unjust that the one I don't like lasts. But, you know, it's weird that, huh? And it's because we don't, that's what's beautiful about a principle. It's like, it's all the same. It's all the same. The difference is in how we react to it, but it's all the same. The Star Wars ride is not more dangerous than the teacups. Now, people think about it that way, that the roller coaster is more dangerous than the teacups. I mean, it is in real life, in physical life, but in its sensory thought world, it's not. It's not. Terror is not more dangerous than joy. It's the same. It's an energy going through your sensory system, giving you an experience as if. And that's one of the facts that we're looking to appreciate. It's all the same. It's all thought. It's all mind. It's all consciousness. It's all that same form of experience happening again and again and again and again. And then when you see, it's like, that's interesting. Like my client, that's interesting. I didn't freak out with the mortgage. I freak out at work. Then what's up with that? Or yeah, some thoughts, when I realize they're thought, I'm not bothered. Some I am bothered. How come it's the ones that I am bothered that I go to the mat with? Huh. Interesting, fine. And then once you realize it's thought, it's like, well, okay, fine. Who cares if I go to the mat with a thought? Big deal. So people want to get it right. They're like, oh, I want this thought. I want to be with this thought like I'm with that. It doesn't matter. When you really look at what's going on, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. So Leela will say to me, what are you doing? Ruminating. Why? Well, because I want to. Well, you're not thinking clearly. Yeah, I know that. You know, so I won't be putting this in my memoirs or making any major decisions off the back of it. If I want to sit here and ruminate, it's my mind, it's my thought. It's my, you know, it's up to me. Leave me alone. Well, you should stop. Well, that's your opinion. My opinion is I should keep going. But I can't hurt myself. No.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is when I am in those darker thoughts, the ones I can't let go of like as easily, just continue to be with them. And I don't know, for me, it's like I'm a graphic designer, so like in Photoshop, there's layers to things, and like the first layer is like that anger thought.
Yeah.
But what I heard, like that next layer is remembering, well, I'm always love and well-being.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so just going, oh, right, like
Yeah.
this first layer is here and present and loud, but I'm the second layer.
Yeah.
And then the third layer is
Yeah.
like consciousness and the
Yeah.
whole scope of my natural,
Yeah.
and kind of just seeing it breaking into that, I can now get to those other two layers versus being
Yeah.
fixed on that
Totally.
one and having to do something about it. So I loved your
Exactly.
question is like, well, you know, I wanted to go, okay, well then my next thought is like, how do I do that? You know, like
Yeah.
that's who I am.
Yeah.
And and in some areas that's really great because when I get an idea, like in the shower, I literally get out of the shower and I implement the idea.
Yeah.
But that's how I create in the world.
Yes.
But that works with like creativity and flow and, you know, stuff like that. But when I get a thought or an idea that's like, you know,
Yeah.
judgment and all of that, getting in that shower and implementing that is like, well, why would I do that?
Yeah.
You know, so like
Yeah.
even as I'm speaking this through right now,
Cool. Yeah.
is like, why would I get out of the shower and implement that one?
Yeah.
And just go implement the ones that are actually fresh thought.
Mhm.
Cool.
So
Very cool.
That is great.
cool.
Yeah. Good for you. That's
Yay.
great. That's great.
Thank you. All right. So I'm thinking it'd be nice to have a fresh start in the morning.
Yeah.
Give you guys a nice evening
Yeah.
to relax and chill. It's great to kind of just dip into the energy, but want you to also be well rested. So we're going to start up again at 10 in the morning. Tomorrow the doors will be open at 9:30. And if anyone's watching on live stream, we will have a 9:15 check-in with Aaron and I at 9:15 in the morning here.
Oh.
So you did know about that.
No, I did.
You did say, I think you're working me hard.
No. Did I? I didn't mean that. Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see,
See you in the morning.
See you in the morning.